Words are not random sounds strung together to fill silence. They are reflections shaped by the inner landscape of the speaker. Every word that leaves the mouth is born in the heart and sculpted by the mind. When someone speaks, they are not merely communicating, they are revealing. They are offering a glimpse into their inner world, their beliefs, their wounds, their desires. What we say, especially in unguarded moments, reveals more truth than we often intend. The deeper a person's inner conflict, the more carefully you must listen to their casual remarks, their jokes, their silences. A person can say, "I love you," but still possess intentions rooted in control. Another can say nothing at all and yet radiate loyalty and compassion. That is the paradox of language. It can reveal truth or it can be used to hide it. But even when words are used to manipulate or disguise, the intention leaks through. Tone, pace, timing, choice of words, and especially what is emphasized or repeated. These are the fingerprints of the soul. They give shape to a person's energy. When someone consistently speaks in blame, criticism, or sarcasm, it does not mean they are cruel by nature, but it does reveal what they are battling inside. Perhaps insecurity, jealousy, shame, or resentment. These bad emotions find a voice in the language they choose. Their intention may not be to harm, but the unresolved pain still spills out through their words like a poison slowly leaking from a cracked vessel. That is why presence and mindful in conversation is not just about listening, it is about reading. Reading what is unsaid, feeling what the words carry. Words spoken in anger, in anxiety, or in manipulation are not accidents. They are internal storms seeking an external outlet. When someone tells you, "You'll never find someone better," it is not a statement about you. It is a confession about how they see the world. It is a mirror reflecting their fear of inadequacy, their belief in scarcity, their desperation to hold on to control. When someone says, "You always overact," they may be telling you more about their discomfort with emotions than your expression of them. Every statement is a window, but we must stop looking only at the glass. We must look through it. Words also shape reality. What is repeatedly spoken becomes belief, and what is believed becomes behavior. If you internalize someone's negative words long enough, you will begin to limit yourself based on someone else's emotional wounds. That is why intention is so critical. When someone speaks from alignment, their words carry clarity, kindness, and strength, even when they are correcting or confronting. When someone speaks from fear or powerlessness, their words sound like defense, blame, or superiority. Even when disguised as honesty, the more aligned a person is with their truth, the more consistent their words become. There is no need to shout when you are rooted in truth. There is no need to humiliate when your strength is not threatened. Words then become tools of elevation, not instruments of control. They carry healing, not harm. Even silence in this state becomes powerful. It is no longer withdrawal, but presence. It is no longer punishment, but peace. And so, listen carefully to what people say when they are frustrated. Listen to what they say about others when they're comfortable. Listen to what they say about love, about forgiveness, about worth. Do not be distracted by their charm or vocabulary. It is not about how intelligent the words sound. It is about what frequency they carry. When someone jokes about hurting, humiliating, or devaluing others, even in humor, they are showing you the hidden layers of their unresolved self. People will often say, "I didn't mean it." But the question is, then why was it even in you to say? Why did your heart create a sentence that your mind now regrets? Because the intention behind words always exists first. Language is not created in the mouth. It is born in the psyche. That's why healing the inner world transforms speech. When the mind is clear, the voice becomes still. When the heart is free, the tongue becomes clean. You don't need to monitor every word to speak in alignment. You just need to clear the intention that forms them. When people speak with cruelty, doubt, or entitlement, they are not always showing your truth. They are showing you their pain. But that pain, once expressed in repeated patterns, becomes their way of being. It becomes a truth they live by. You must learn to listen not with your ears, but with your awareness. Language is the surface, but intention is the current beneath it. And it is always the current that decides where the river will flow. There are words that wound louder than fists, and there are phrases that carry a venom so subtle, so quiet, they destroy you slowly over time. Among the most dangerous is the phrase, "No one else will ever want you." It may seem like a line said in a moment of frustration or a cruel joke disguised as honesty, but is far more than that. It is a psychological weapon, a form of spiritual assassination, a reflection of deep insecurity in the one who speaks it, and a test of self-worth for the one who receives it. When someone says this to you, they are not making a statement about you. They are making a confession about themselves. What they are really saying is Q. I am afraid someone else will recognize your value before I ever truly appreciate it. It is not love that motivates those words. It is control. The need to shrink you, cage you, and make you doubt your own radiance, so you never realize how free you truly are. This phrase is not always shouted in rage. Sometimes it's whispered in manipulation, delivered with a smile, or slid into a conversation under the disguise of concern. It might be followed with, I'm just being honest with you, or I'm saying this because I care. But poison laced in sugar is still poison. What makes these words so harmful is not just the message, but the timing, the tone, the implication. They are often said when you are already vulnerable, when your confidence is shaky, when your heart is open, or when you're trying to please. That's why they land so deeply. The phrase, no one else will ever want you, is designed to isolate you, to make you believe that this is the only relationship you're worthy of, that this love, no matter how conditional, how unkind, how toxic, is your only option. It's meant to convince you that the very qualities that make you unique, emotional, outspoken, ambitious, or sensitive are liabilities that others would reject. It's a lie wrapped in authority, meant to override your own intuition. But the truth is this: people who say these words are not protecting you from rejection. They are protecting themselves from losing control. Because a woman who realizes her worth is no longer willing to settle. She starts asking questions. She stops accepting crumbs and starts demanding respect. Not through force, but through presence. And that threatens those who feed off imbalance. These words echo long after they are said. They live in the mirror, in the hesitation before posting a photo, in the silence when asked, "What do you want?" They creep into your decisions, making you settle for less in your job, tolerate disrespect from others, or fear being alone. That one sentence repeated enough becomes an internal script. And if you're not careful, you'll begin to live as though it's true. But pause for a moment. Ask yourself, who benefits from you believing this? Who gains power from you staying silent, staying small, staying stuck? It's never you. A love that needs you to feel unwanted by the world is not love. It's captivity. It's fear masquerading as commitment. When someone truly values you, they empower you, even at the risk of losing you. They don't tether your self-esteem to their opinion. They want you to rise, even if that means you rise beyond them. The person who tells you no one else will want you is trying to replace your inner voice with theirs. They want to become the architect of your self-image, to build walls inside your mind so you never wander too far, but you were never born to be caged. Your worth is not a favor granted by someone else. It is an inherent truth, and no sentence, no opinion, no fear-based declaration can undo it, even if you've heard it more than once, even if it came from someone you once trusted. Even if part of you believed it, what was said about you is not your destiny. It was someone else's limitation projected onto your potential. And the longer you carry those words inside you, the further you drift from your true self. Words have power, but only if you give them a place to live inside you. You can evict them. You can outgrow them. You can replace them with truth. Emotional manipulation rarely walks through the door wearing a villain's face. It enters subtly, wrapped in gentleness, cloaked in the language of care. It sounds like, "I'm only saying this because I love you," or "You don't see what I see. I'm trying to protect you." These phrases appear supportive on the surface, but they are often carefully crafted tools of control. They don't aim to empower you. They aim to steer you away from your own intuition. That is what makes emotional manipulation so dangerous. It pretends to be love. Manipulation disguised as concern does not push you directly. It leads you with invisible strings, making you feel as if your decisions were your own. It's not an obvious command, but a subtle influence. It makes you question your instincts, doubt your memories, and eventually lose your ability to trust your own inner guidance. The manipulator presents themselves as your safe harbor, someone who knows better than you do. They take on the role of protector, but only to strip you of autonomy and make you dependent on their validation. You'll often hear it in relationships when one partner uses concern to limit the other's freedom. They might say, "I just don't think those people are good for you," when referring to your friends who encourage independence. Or they'll comment, "I know how sensitive you are. I just want you to be realistic," when you're sharing dreams that threaten their control. In every instance, the message is clear: you can't trust yourself, so trust me instead. Slowly, that message reshapes your mind. You begin to second guess every choice. You look for permission before making moves. You fear that if they disapprove, maybe you're wrong. The most powerful manipulation is not the one that shouts, it's the one that whispers just enough doubt into your confidence to make you shrink. The manipulator's greatest weapon is confusion. They want you to feel unsteady, always unsure whether you're overreacting or being too sensitive. The more confused you are, the easier you are to control. And they will always say, you're too emotional, right after making you cry. Or, you took it the wrong way, right after saying something they knew would hurt. But true concern does not make you feel small. True care does not require your obedience. If someone is genuinely concerned for you, their words will empower, not diminish. They will ask, not dictate. They will listen, not override. You will feel stronger in their presence, not smaller. Real love encourages your voice. Manipulation disguised as concern silences it. In the early stages, emotional manipulation might even feel comforting. You may think, they just want what's best for me, especially if you've been conditioned to seek approval. But over time, you begin to notice patterns. You notice that your choices are less and less your own. You notice that you feel guilty for wanting something different. You feel afraid to speak your truth, not because you'll be yelled at, but because you'll be gently made to feel foolish or ungrateful. This is not guidance, it's grooming. The manipulator may never raise their voice, but their tone is always heavy with judgment. They present their opinions as truth, their control as wisdom. They call your independence reckless, your clarity stubbornness, and your strength aggression. Every time you try to reclaim your space, they say, I'm just worried about you, as if concern gives them permission to violate your boundaries. They will make you feel responsible for their emotions. If you pull away, you're abandoning them. If you speak your mind, you're attacking them. If you ask for space, you're being distant. Over time, you internalize a distorted version of love, one where your peace costs you your freedom and your loyalty demands your silence. Eventually, you begin to question your own worth. You start wondering if you are really the problem. You stop expressing your needs. You silence your truth before anyone else does. And that's exactly how manipulation wins, not by breaking you down in a single moment, but by training you to break yourself down over and over again. Manipulation disguised as concern thrives in relationships where love has been confused with control. It survives in silence, it feeds on doubt, and it often comes from people who believe they truly care. But care that requires your submission is not care. It is control pretending to be love. The most dangerous part of it is that you may begin to call it safety. There are prisons that have no walls. There are cages that cannot be seen, only felt. And there is a kind of silence, a kind of heaviness in the soul that appears long before the mind can explain it. The spirit, our deepest, most sacred essence, may be quiet, but it is never blind. It knows when it is being confined. It knows when it is being dimmed, diminished, manipulated, or silenced. Even if the words sound loving, even if the touch appears gentle, even if the world around you thinks you're in a perfect place, your spirit will whisper the truth. That whisper begins as discomfort, a subtle tension in your chest, a hesitation before you speak, a question that loops inside your mind. Why do I feel less like myself when I'm with this person? You may brush it aside at first, thinking you're being dramatic or ungrateful. But the spirit doesn't speak for attention. It speaks for liberation. And if you don't listen when it whispers, it will start to shout through anxiety, through sadness, through a sense of internal suffocation that you can't name. The tragedy is that many learn to ignore that voice. They've been taught to explain it away, to call it insecurity or moodiness or selfishness. Especially in relationships where control is masked as love, the caging of the spirit happens so subtly, so incrementally, that by the time you feel trapped, you can't remember when the door closed. You just know you're not free. You just know that somewhere between, I love you, and why do you always act like this? Something shifted inside you. You began shrinking. The spirit doesn't measure safety by how much someone gives you. It measures it by how much of yourself you're allowed to be. When you're free, you feel spacious on the inside. You don't walk on eggshells. You don't monitor your tone, your dreams, your pace, your light. You shine without fear. You speak without rehearsing. You rest without guilt. And when that is missing, when love begins to require performance, sacrifice of self, or constant justification, your spirit will pull back. Sometimes it retreats in silence. Sometimes in overthinking. Sometimes in tears you can't explain. And yet the world around you may praise the relationship you're in. Friends might say, he treats you so well, not knowing that it's not always about visible harm. Sometimes the most dangerous prison is built with compliments and gifts, with concern and logic, with "I only want the best for you." But the spirit doesn't respond to how things look, it responds to how things feel. You can be with someone who never raises their voice, never insults you directly, and still feel more alone than when you are by yourself. Because emotional imprisonment is not always about abuse. It is about misalignment. It is about being with someone whose presence contracts your spirit rather than expands it. And when your inner being starts to feel like it must dim to stay loved, it is already caged. The spirit will try to stay alive in small ways, through sudden bursts of emotion, through resistance, through longing, through dreams you stop speaking about. It will keep nudging you toward freedom, even when the cost of that freedom seems high, even when walking away means starting over. Because the spirit was never designed to be owned. It was never meant to be tamed into pleasing others. It is wild, vast, sovereign, and sacred. It cannot thrive in places that demand its silence. And yet, so many people stay where their spirit has long left. They stay for the comfort of routine, for the approval of others, for fear of being alone. But the body cannot lie for long. It begins to carry the grief of your unlived truth. Fatigue sets in, the eyes dim. Joy becomes a memory. You might smile, but it never reaches the soul. And deep down, it is not that something is missing in the relationship, it is that you are missing in it. When the spirit is caged, nothing external can compensate. No gift, no title, no promise can fill the age of self-abandonment. You can decorate the cage, but it remains a cage. You can call it love, but it remains a transaction. You can tell yourself it's better than being alone, but that illusion will never silence the truth your spirit keeps repeating. This is not who you are. Attachment is often mistaken for love, because it feels intense, consuming, and even necessary. But not everything that feels deep is healthy, and not everything that feels difficult to let go of is rooted in truth. Many relationships survive on attachment, not love. They are built on dependency, fear, and emotional habits that bind two people together, not in freedom, but in silent desperation. When attachment arises from fear, it disguises itself as devotion. It pretends to be loyalty, but underneath it is anxiety holding hands with insecurity. You can be deeply attached to someone who belittles you. You can stay connected to someone who confuses you, disrespects you, or leaves you emotionally starved. Because attachment doesn't ask, "Is this good for me?" It only says, "I need this person to feel okay." This kind of emotional tethering doesn't come from the heart, it comes from the wounds we carry. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of being alone. These fears drive us to cling, to chase, to settle. And all the while we tell ourselves, this must be love, because it hurts this much to walk away. But pain is not the proof of love. Possession is not the proof of love. Fear-driven attachment is not intimacy. It is survival disguised as romance. When the foundation of a connection is the fear of losing it, the entire relationship becomes a performance. We become more focused on keeping the person than on keeping ourselves whole. We tolerate disrespect, accept silence as connection, and confuse emotional trust with passion. The mind starts building stories to justify the dysfunction. He's just scared of commitment, or she needs time to heal, or no relationship is perfect. These stories are how we negotiate with our pain instead of confronting it. Love is not built on neediness. Love is built on presence. Where fear binds, love liberates. Where attachment suffocates, love breathes. A love that is real does not make you feel smaller to keep the peace. It does not demand your silence or punish your independence, meaning like go to bed. A love that is real doesn't survive on emotional highs and crashing lows. It flows steadily and securely, even when life doesn't. Fear-based attachment convinces you that your worth is tied to someone else's presence in your life. It makes you believe that without them, you will collapse. It tricks you into thinking you cannot live without their attention, their approval, or their affection, even if it's only given in crumbs. That illusion creates power imbalances. One person becomes the emotional center, while the other revolves around them, constantly working, constantly adapting, constantly sacrificing. But you are not meant to orbit anyone. You are not meant to shrink just to be held. You are not meant to confuse emotional dependency with emotional connection. When fear is the foundation, every conflict becomes a threat. Every silence becomes a punishment. Every disagreement feels like a possible ending. There is no room for growth, only maintenance. No room for honesty, only careful compliance. And yet, this kind of attachment often feels romantic because it echoes of past relationships, of childhood wounds, of emotional trauma we never fully faced. It feels familiar, but familiar does not mean right. Familiar does not mean safe. Many stay in fear-based relationships because they've never known peace in connection. They believe love is supposed to hurt, supposed to be earned, supposed to be fought for every day. But love that demands you fight to feel worthy is not love. It is emotional captivity. You may miss someone every day and still be better off without them. You may still age for the comfort of their voice while knowing that their presence drains you. You go to bed. That contradiction doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. The heart takes time to separate love from attachment, but the spirit knows the truth. The spirit knows when you're staying because of fear, not faith. When you're holding on not because it's right, but because it's familiar. And when that fear is the foundation, no amount of effort will make it stable. You will always feel as if you're trying not to lose someone instead of being free to love them. Leaving is often seen as a failure, as a sign of weakness, as a betrayal of something sacred. Society romanticizes endurance even when endurance costs your peace. People are praised for sticking it out, for not giving up, even when what they're sticking to is breaking them from the inside. The fear of being called selfish, cold, disloyal, or ungrateful keeps many in places that drain their spirit. But not every exit is abandonment. Sometimes walking away is the most powerful act of self-respect. Leaving is not betrayal. It is the return to yourself. There comes a point in many relationships, connections, and commitments when your presence begins to feel like a performance. You start hiding parts of yourself to maintain harmony. You quiet your thoughts so you don't disturb someone else's comfort. You tell yourself that compromise is necessary, that discomfort is normal, that love means sacrifice. And yes, love does require effort, but it should never require your disappearance. When being present costs you your authenticity, you are not in love, you are in confinement. Leaving is not about running away. It's about walking toward clarity. It is about recognizing that you are not growing in the space you're in, that your needs have become optional, that your boundaries have become negotiable, that your voice echoes in silence even when you speak, that your light flickers around someone who only sees you as a reflection of their desires. You can't thrive in a place where your worth is always being questioned or weighed against someone else's comfort. Many stay because they were raised to believe that loyalty means never leaving, that love is proven through endurance, that staying in pain makes you noble. But loyalty should not be used as a weapon against your soul. True loyalty includes loyalty to your own well-being. Staying in a relationship, a job, a situation, or a friendship where your growth is stifled is not loyalty, it's self-abandonment. And self-abandonment is not strength, it's slow erosion. When you leave, people may not understand. They may accuse you of quitting, of giving up, of betraying a bond. But only you know the truth of what you've endured. You to bed. Only you understand the nights you cry yourself to sleep while pretending everything was fine during the day. Only you know the weight of holding it all together while slowly falling apart inside. Leaving is not about proving anyone wrong. It's about finally choosing to live right by yourself. You are not obligated to remain where you are not respected, not heard, not seen, not cherished. You are allowed to choose peace over performance. You are allowed to choose growth over stagnation. You are allowed to let go of anything that dims your joy. That's not betrayal. That's courage. The courage to release the familiar in exchange for your freedom. The courage to admit that something once meaningful is no longer aligned. The courage to stop betraying yourself just to make someone else comfortable. And yes, leaving can be messy. It can come with grief, confusion, guilt, and the ache of missing what once felt like home. But sometimes home is not a place. It's a version of yourself you haven't lived in years. Returning to yourself means honoring the voice you silenced, the dreams you postponed, the truth you've avoided, the strength you forgot you had. Every step away from what hurts is a step toward what heals. You don't owe anyone your constant endurance, especially when that endurance costs your spirit. Mean like you to bed, you don't have to explain your pain to be valid in your decision to walk away. You don't need permission to reclaim your life. Leaving is not a rejection of love. It is the acceptance of deeper, truer love that begins within. The love that says, I will no longer participate in anything that asks me to betray myself for the sake of belonging. The love that says, I choose me even if no one claps for it. The love that does not seek justification. It simply knows when it's time to walk away